Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. Welcome to the lesson on fertilizing. In this lesson you will learn why to fertilize, when to fertilize, and how to fertilize. So let's begin. So why do you fertilize your fields? The simple answer is you fertilize your fields because it increases the yield of the crop that you will get off the field when you go to harvest it. So Farming Simulator has an increase of 23% in the yield each time you fertilize, and you're able to fertilize a field twice, so you can increase your yield by 46%. You can see detail about that in the help screen, Improving Yield, where you can see spread fertilizer twice, plus 23% each time. So it's a good thing to do, and it's typically a good return on your investment. But of course, if you're pressed for time or for other reasons, perhaps you just don't like fertilizing, you may choose not to do it. But the reason why is to increase your yield. When do you do it, or how do you know you need to do it? If you go to your map and we look at the fields, again we own these fields here, so I'll zoom in. Everything you need is on the growth tab. We covered a lot of this in the lesson about farm management, so if you have not reviewed that, please go look at that lesson. Specific to fertilizing, fertilizing happens during the growth stage. So there's multiple levels of growth, which is why this has a gradient of different colors of green. But any field that you have that is in a state of green, the next thing you want to check is what is the fertilization state. So I'm just turning off plowing and lime to make the field more visible. And you can see fertilization is either a light blue or a dark blue. We don't have any blue on this field, which means at this point it has not had any fertilizer. So we're going to go ahead and fertilize that. So how do you fertilize? Well, you need a fertilizer. I'm here at the shop. If you do not know how to purchase equipment, you can review the lesson about purchasing equipment. And if you don't know how to purchase supplies, you can review that lesson on how to purchase supplies. So I've got a fertilizer and I have a big bag of fertilizer here. So let me get into the tractor. And at this point, I need to open my cover if it's not already open, and you'll see I can refill the fertilizer spreader. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And as long as the capacity is larger than the big bag, we'll be able to fill it, and the big bag disappears as you saw. This particular spreader has a very wide working width of 42 meters, and it has a feature that's relatively unique. This does not exist on every implement, where you can change the width. So you can see it's 42, and I can adjust it all the way down to 15. So depending on what you're fertilizing, if you don't want to waste fertilizer, it gives you that added control. But again, not every fertilizer spreader does that. With that in mind, we'll get to our field. I'll see you there, and I'll give you your last set of instructions to go fertilize the field. So here I am at my field 41 that I planted with barley. You may have planted the same thing or planted something different. And if you've advanced the day, you may be into a growth stage like this. You can fertilize immediately after you plant as long as the field state has changed, and planting changes the field state. So you can do your first stage of fertilization the same day if you'd like. You are not able to do your second stage of fertilization immediately after your first, because there has to be a state change in between. So something would need to happen, and with growing crops that basically means the stage needs to change. So you'll look for a deeper shade of green on the map, but it's at least going to be the next day. So you cannot fertilize twice in the same day. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my spreader and begin moving. And you can see it immediately is consuming fertilizer. So unlike a seeder or other things, you do need to be careful with the fertilizer, because you can toss your fertilizer just on the ground sitting at the edge of a field if you're not careful with turning your spreader on and off. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the map, and now you can see that I have fertilized my field in that stretch. It is now blue. You can also take note here that we happen to catch a little bit of 40. That field state is in a state of cultivated, so it is able to be fertilized, and that fertilizer state will stay. So you can make several choices on when to fertilize, depending on what you want to do and how you prefer to work. So you can cultivate, fertilize, seed, and put the second stage of fertilization on, or you can wait until you plant, which is what happened here, and then you can fertilize, wait for a growth stage, and fertilize. You simply need to get your 2 stages of fertilization into your field prior to it being ready for harvest to get the full bonus. So go ahead and complete your field and fertilize it, and if you want to go ahead, certainly fertilize field 40. Experiment and try different things to get used to the game. So some bonus detail here as you fertilize. You can see in the field behind me that there's a difference between the part of the field I just went over with the fertilizer and the other. That is part of what I talked about with the state change. You can also see that I missed a tiny bit in the corner here. So sometimes you can physically see changes in the field. I was also able to do that over in this field, in field 40 that was cultivated. The ground got darker. You can also then clearly see on the map what has been done. So you can see that part I missed here. So there's multiple ways you can do things. When there's crop on the field, it's hard to see things change. So really the map is what you have to take a look at just to make sure you're not missing things. So just keep that in mind as you're fertilizing your fields. That concludes this lesson. I'll see you next time.